Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. We are ready to get started here. Welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. CMC explores public policy issues, current events, and lessons in leadership at forums just like this one every week. I'm Doug Buchanan. I'm editor-in-chief of Columbus Business First. I'm also a proud member of the CMC Board of Trustees and chair of CMC's editorial board, the Program Committee. We would like to thank the United Way of Central Ohio, the Ohio Farm Bureau Federation, the Columbus Chamber of Commerce, Public Sector Consulting, Ian Alexander Photography, HNTB, and Smoot Construction for sponsoring today's forum. How about a hand for all of them? We're also grateful to the presenting sponsor of our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, and to our live stream partner, the Columbus Dispatch, and a thank you to the Ellis for once again hosting us. Every CMC forum takes a village. We are absolutely thrilled to bring you today's program. Governor Mike DeWine's proposed $218 billion biennial state budget seeks to fund the state's public education system, deliver a tax credit for parents with minimum wage jobs, and provide higher funding for children's services, including childcare, literacy, and vision programs. Today, we dig into the governor's proposed budget and his priorities for our state. It is now my great honor to welcome to CMC the Honorable Mike DeWine, Governor of the state of Ohio. And our host, once again, returning to CMC reporter and producer for the State House News Bureau, Joe Ingalls. Joe, take it away.
Thank you to the CMC and Governor DeWine for joining us today. This will be quite a discussion, I'm sure. So let me start out. I want to ask the first question here about your state of the state. You talked about funding for K through 12 schools, and your budget calls for funding the Fair School Funding Plan. And the data you used to arrive at the numbers in there, that data is 2 years old. Advocates for public schools say that means that the formula is not fully funded and that they're not going to get as much as they need. I want to know from you if you want to talk about why you use that data and will schools have enough money?
So the reality is that in this budget, which is my fourth budget, it's going to be the same debates as we've had for decades. And ultimately, the state legislature is going to decide, maybe with some input from me, they're going to decide what that formula is. Our focus was not so much on that, because we know the legislature, whatever you put down, the legislature is just going to do their own thing on that. Our focus, though, there's 2 or 3 things in there that we've had a focus on before. We remain a focus. Science of reading. We put additional funds in there for literacy coaches. 2 years ago, we asked the legislature to basically mandate the science of reading in every school in the state. They have done that. We are seeing great success. We're seeing our numbers start to come up. So that's probably number one. We have some other things in there that have not gotten much attention. We had a working group put together to look at school bus safety. We have $30 million in there to help schools, specifically in regard to targeted money for school bus safety. Another thing that we have in the budget is a significant amount of money carved out that goes to mental health. And we have other additional funds focused on, again, as I said, on literacy. So those are the things that, we hope that the legislature will keep in there. We think they're transformative and they're going to make a difference.
Okay, now I'm going to warn you, this is a long question. As you know, one of the big talking points has been money for a new stadium for the Cleveland Browns. I know you're a Cincinnati fan, but the Browns want to move from downtown
Really?
Cleveland.
I didn't know any of this. Oh, thank you.
The Browns, they want to move from downtown Cleveland to Brook Park. And you had floated the idea of a tax on sports gambling operators to fund the Brown Stadium and also some projects through a sports facility fund. Now, as my colleague Karen Kassler reported earlier this week, an amendment has been drafted to insert into the state budget a $600 million package of 30-year bonds to make up the state's portion of funding. It would eliminate your sports facilities fund. You said last week that Ohio really cannot afford to continue to put money into sports stadiums out of the general fund, and that there's not enough money, and that it would compete with education, taking money away from kids and things like mental health. Is that your way of sending a signal that you are going to line item veto what this draft amendment, if it gets put into that budget?
Well, let's go back in history a little bit, Joe. It's a very good question. Thank you for the question. In Ohio, we have taken money from taxpayers at the state level for the last 50 years to help build stadiums, help rehab stadiums. I'm not against that. The quality of life in Ohio depends on a lot of things. We're proud of the theaters that we have. We're proud of the museums we have. The art that we have. We're also proud of our sports teams. And if you take not just the major league teams, but the minor league teams, virtually every area of the state has a team close to them that helps improve the quality of life. And to be competitive with other states, I think it's fine that we put some money in there. But this is not just a question about the Browns. It's a question about every other stadium. We're seeing more professional sports, which is a good thing. I think we're going to see women's soccer maybe come into Cleveland, maybe come into Cincinnati, and we've got other ones. So if you look at the next 10 to 20 years, there's going to be a lot of, let's say, demand on the state budget for this. I don't think we can afford to continue to go into the general fund of our budget and take this money. This money directly competes against education. It directly competes against mental health, drug addiction, all of these things that we need money to try to help people. Our ultimate goal, as many of you have heard me say, is for every Ohioan to live up to their God-given potential. And to do that, we have to remove barriers, such as mental health barriers, and we have to focus on education. So what's the solution? I think there's a pretty easy solution, frankly. And it is, and I'll give you a statistic, over 98% of sports gaming is online. Of that online gaming, 99.5% of the money goes to out-of-state gaming companies who don't employ anybody in the state of Ohio, who don't give anything to the economy of Ohio, and all they do is take it out. Now, what they're doing is perfectly legal. I just want them to pay their fair share. And so my plan, we currently have it at 20% tax. That money basically goes to education. I would leave that alone. Under my plan that I put in the budget, I would raise that by 20% more. And that additional 20% more will generate somewhere between $150 million to $180 million per year. And what I would do with that money, and what I propose to the General Assembly, is that we put this into a fund. The money would go in every year into a fund, and that fund could be used for two big things. One is to help with sports stadiums, and the other would be to help with what I'm calling youth sports. Here's one example. Many kids in the state of Ohio cannot play sports in their high school because there is a fee to play the sport. I think that's wrong. Being part of a team is something that's just part of life and adds to their ability to that young person to stay in school many times. So we could use some of that money for that. I just think it's poetic justice, or it is justice, that the people who are making the most money off sports and who aren't contributing really anything help pay a little bit for the stadiums in the state of Ohio. To me, this is an easy way of doing it. Some people say, well, that's an increase in taxes. Well, for the person who is gaming, it's not an increase in taxes. They don't pay the tax, and it's going to be paid directly by the companies that are outside the state of Ohio. And frankly, it's not going to change the gaming experience one way or the other in the state of Ohio. We have some states that are at 51%. New York, for example, is at 51. I think New Hampshire is at 51. So we won't be the lowest, but we certainly will not be the highest if we double that. This is money that's on the table, and we should be taking it to put into things that are productive and helpful for the people of the state of Ohio. And again, this will permanently solve our problem. If we don't do this, every legislature, every governor in the future is going to have to face the challenge of, gee, do we put 20 million here? Do we put 40 million here for this stadium or that stadium? And gee, they have a big cost. You can just hear the stories. So to me, Joe, this is a simple one, and we're crazy if we don't do this.
I want to follow up on that, though. It doesn't look like lawmakers, at least at this point of the budget process, are going to do what you want them to do. So if they put it out in bonds, will you veto that?
We got long, Joe. You've done this a long time. You and I both have, and you have more experience with these budgets probably than I do. But look, we got a long way to go, folks. We haven't seen the House budget yet, let alone the Senate. And then there's a thing called a conference committee, and then there's some discussions that might occur between the Speaker and the Senate President and the Governor. And we got a long way to go. I just think, this is such a logical idea. And think of this, it frees us up never again to have to spend general fund dollars and take that money away from schools to help with our stadiums forever. It's a permanent fund, unless people stop gaming, which I don't think they're going to. That's just a lot of money, 150 to 180 million every single year going into that. That's why we said not only for stadiums, but let's use this for other youth funding. And the way we've got it written, it wouldn't just be for sports. If a child has some other extracurricular activity, something that there's a fee connected to it, this could pay for that as well. It could be theater, it could be anything. Part of education of kids and part of what helps keep kids glued to the school is the other things they do besides what happens directly into the classroom.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about higher ed now. You said in your State of the State speech that you want to build on the existing program that gives kids in the top 5% of their graduating class a state scholarship to pay for college. Now, they're getting that now. Some question whether that's a good idea to build on that, because kids who graduate with those grades are going to get a lot of financial support from colleges anyway. And there's the concern that this just frees up colleges from giving that money to those students. What about that?
Well, there's a lot of ways that we're looking at this, but let me just kind of back up, Joe, and look at what I think is the big picture. Woody Hayes said you win with people. We win with people. If you look at the future of the state of Ohio, what's happening now? We're creating more jobs than we have people to fill them. We got companies coming in from California, from all over the country. They're locating here in the state of Ohio. They're creating a lot of jobs. Our biggest challenge is to make sure we have people to fill those positions. We will move forward as a state if we can keep our best people here, our people who want to work, people who want to be creative, and at the same time attract people from other states. Now, because we have the jobs, we're going to create and attract people from other states. We want to keep our top kids in the state of Ohio. And here's what the statistics are. Prior to our putting this in the budget, we were getting somewhere, I think, between 60% of these, around 65% of these kids who were the top 5% were staying in the state of Ohio. We changed that and gave an incentive of $5,000, and it's $5,000, and you can pick your school in the state of Ohio. Any school in the state of Ohio, we give you $5,000, and we give it to you for 4 straight years. The first year we did this, it jumped up to, I think, 76%. This year, we're just seeing the numbers now, we're at 87%. So that means we've dramatically increased. The first year, there was over 1,000 kids who stayed in the state of Ohio who normally would not have stayed in the state of Ohio. Now, why is that important? It's important because the statistics clearly tell us, the data clearly tells us, that if you go to school in the state of Ohio, you have dramatically increased your possibility of getting your first job in the state of Ohio and actually turning out and staying in the state of Ohio. So more and more of these kids, top-level kids, staying in the state of Ohio is frankly good for all of us, and that's why we're doing it. The other, we do a couple other things with that. If I could just add to it, we also say in this budget, if you're in the top 5% of your graduating class, you can go to any state university in the state of Ohio, and they must admit you. And they must admit you to the main campus. Now, how many times, I won't ask for hands, but you know somebody in your family who was a very high-level student, and when they got admitted, they got admitted, but Ohio State said, for example, you can't go to the main campus. You got to go here, you got to go there, and the kid doesn't want to go to the other campuses. So again, one more way to keep kids in the state of Ohio. We do not want to lose those kids. We want them to stay here.
You are also advocating for, I'm going to call it a return on investment from colleges by requiring them to track students who graduate to make sure they get jobs in their chosen field of study after graduation. Now, some people have suggested that this would hurt the humanities, leading colleges to kind of steer students into certain fields like engineering or something like that instead of English. Would it?
Well, first of all, I love English majors. I've hired a lot of people in my career, and you can ask anybody on my staff. I have a bias in favor of English majors. Why? They have to think, and they can write, and they have to be able to analyze. So English majors have a great role, at least as long as Mike DeWine's around and hiring people. So there's nothing wrong with it. There's a lot of good things to be said about that.
Okay. The bill that would ban most mandatory diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, DEI programs, at Ohio's state colleges, and it would prohibit faculty strikes. That's likely to get an approval today, and it's going to be sent to you after it does. It does several other things. It includes requiring civics and a history course, post-tenure performance reviews, intellectual diversity on some controversial topics. But we've seen a lot of protests down at the State House over this bill. Opponents of it, including students, say it will end up hurting higher ed in Ohio. You aren't buying that, but what if you're wrong? What if you do sign the law and it becomes clear that it is hurting higher ed in Ohio? What then?
Look, I'll get to the bill in a minute, but that's a hypothetical. But look, it wouldn't be the first time that something gets passed and everybody looks at it 6 months later or a year later and says, hey, that wasn't what we intended, or there's been, it didn't turn out the way we wanted to. So I think any bill, you're always open, and I think as a state, we should always be open to re-examining everything. Look, I'm today actually was going through different parts of the bill, and I made it clear I'll probably sign the bill, but I want to go through this bill again and take a look at it. I think it's important for me to at least express what I think the importance of our schools are and our colleges. We are blessed in the state of Ohio with 14 public four-year universities, but we're also blessed with over 50 of our independent colleges and universities. We are a net importer of college students by a lot, which means we're bringing in a lot more than we are sending out to other states. So it is a real asset. We have communities in the state of Ohio where that is the biggest industry, is the local college. It also means that some of these kids who come in from outside the state will stay in Ohio. They will get their job here. So we're blessed with these colleges and universities. I think that colleges and universities, one of the main purpose of them is to get young people to think, or older people, to be informed, to be able to critically think. I think that's important in high school. I think it's important in junior high. I think it's important all the way through education. And our colleges should be doing that as well. That means that there will be diverse points of view expressed in a classroom, over the lunch table, and I think those are things that absolutely must be encouraged. Now, one of the goals of this bill is to make sure that we do everything that we can so that a student feels free to express their point of view, whether that be in a classroom or whether that be someplace else on campus. That should be part of what we're doing in higher education.
Okay, well, let's move on to the transportation budget. I want to ask you about that. There's a provision in it that requires a person to show proof of citizenship to register to vote. Does that belong in there?
Well, I'll look at that. Look, I have said that I think we do a good job in voting in the state of Ohio. I don't mean the outcome, but what I'm talking about is the process. I think we do a very, very good job. And so I think the burden of proof is on anyone who wants to change it. We've changed it a few times. We've done some different things. I'll take a look at that when that gets to me.
Okay. The transportation budget also allows for elimination of the provision to rejoin the Midwest Interstate Passenger Rail Commission. Your thoughts on that?
So we have told the federal government, we did this during when President Biden was president, that, you know, we wanted to have a study done. And this has been a process, and so we have moved towards a process. So that in the future, some future governor, in all likelihood, and a future legislature can make a decision about whether or not rail transportation, passenger transportation, makes sense for the state of Ohio. And so that's been what we've done. And I want to see what the study is going to show. I want to see what the dollars are, what the math is, and ultimately we will make that decision. It's very unlikely that it will be made during the time I'm in office. But so, you know, that's what we have done in the past, and we want that option to be available.
Okay. Let's move on to another subject, Medicaid. There are nearly 770,000 Ohioans on Medicaid expansion. With the cuts to Medicaid proposed in the House Republicans' version of the budget, are you still behind the idea of trigger language in the state budget that would end Medicaid expansion if the federal matching the rate of that drops below 90%?
Look, I was in favor of the expansion. It wasn't done when I was governor. It was done when Governor Kasich was governor. I've been in favor of that. And just kind of a little aside here, when you talk about Medicaid, you know, we're talking about a substantial number of Ohioans and in regard to their medical care. We have done some, I think, phenomenal breaking through barriers, things that have not been done in any other state in regard to Medicaid. We've taken a group of kids, for example, who have usually are considered multiple agency kids. There's young people who have multiple mental health problems, physical problems, and we put a real focus on them. I think we've got about 45,000 of them now that we have moved into a much better care situation. That's just one of the many things that we've done through Medicaid. I think, candidly, it's been one of the areas that's been underreported. I know that you all can't report everything, but some of the things that we've been doing in Medicaid we're very, very proud of. Quality of life for people. And again, if we want people to live up to their God-given potential, this is one of the ways we focus on that. What we don't know is what the federal government is going to do. And you know, the federal government is paying virtually all of this expansion. Now, if they change the numbers or if they stop paying, that obviously we will have to make some very, very difficult choices that frankly we do not want to have to make. So I'm not going to make any commitment of what we're going to do until I see what the numbers are coming out of the federal government. And we're going to focus and do the best we can to provide the best medical care to the poor people in the state of Ohio, to our children, and to the folks who are in nursing homes, because those are the constituencies that are helped by Medicaid.
Let's talk taxes. Voters say they want property tax relief. You didn't have any proposals to cut property taxes in your budget, and you didn't mention it in your State of the State speech. But I got to ask you, should lawmakers be doing more on property tax cuts or changes, and what would you like to see them do?
Well, what I hear from people when they complain about taxes is primarily exactly that, and that is their real estate taxes that they're paying. Let me put this in a little perspective, and let me look at our income tax. We have the lowest income tax we've had in the state of Ohio in 50 years. So we have cut our taxes budget after budget after budget as far as our income tax. During the time I've been governor, as we have worked with hundreds and hundreds of companies trying to get them to come to the state of Ohio, many times we've been successful, sometimes we've not been. But during that period of time, over 6 years, I've not had one company turn to me and say, you know, Governor, we'd love to come to Ohio, but your income taxes are too high. That is not an issue. We are competitive. We might not have been competitive 10 or 15 years ago, but we are very, very, very competitive today. That income tax issue is no longer an issue, and I think that's important to say. We want to remain competitive. No matter who it is that's talking about taxes, if you're going to reduce taxes, you are going to have to figure out how to deal with that. Either you're going to have to cut something, or you're in turn, are going to have to raise some other tax. And I would just say that we got a gubernatorial campaign that's already started, and it's going to go on for a long, long time, almost 2 years. And let's keep that in mind. I think the legislature is going to look at the real estate taxes, because they're obviously hearing the same thing that everyone else is hearing. The challenge is, how do you do it in a fair way, an equitable way, and then how do you make up that money, because the bulk of that money goes directly into our local schools. So it is not an easy task.
So it comes back to that first question about local schools and funding, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, but there again, we have a balance in Ohio. Basically, we start with funding at the local level, but what the state money does, and what the goal of the state money is to bring some equity, at least try to get there in trying to help the poorest school districts who have the least money or the least available money that they can be taxed, and to supplement that with the state money. But just to give you an idea about the income tax, what the income tax brings in is basically what it costs to do our schools. So it's a lot of money.
Yeah, that is a lot of money. A lot of LGBTQ activists in Ohio say that the climate here is becoming very unfriendly. And you have signed into law some bills that they have identified as being bills that allow kids who are LGBTQ to be bullied in school or be mistreated. They say that's a problem.
First of all, I would disagree with that. I would totally disagree with that.
Okay. Can you speak to why you would disagree?
I don't think we have done that. I don't think, look, you go back and look at everything that I have said as governor and State of the State speeches and other times. You know, this should be a welcoming state. We want everybody to come to Ohio and feel welcome in the state of Ohio.
Do you think that there's an anti-LGBTQ climate in Ohio?
No, but I think it's important for all of us who are in public office to speak out about that, and for all of us to continue to make it clear that this is a state that welcomes everyone. And we want you to come to the state of Ohio. We want you to feel welcome here.
Okay, so I want to ask you about something that's happening right now, basically. We learned that there was a war chat talk. There was, at the federal level, there was a war chat talk about the Houthis.
Yeah, I think I've heard about that, yeah.
I'm sure you have. And it was on Signal. A lot of the defense people, Vice President J.D. Vance, people were on this chat talk on Signal, and it was giving away war plans for how to go against the Houthis. But there was also a journalist on there, and he realized after there had been some actions taken that, wait a minute, I probably shouldn't be on this, and he did make it known, but that was after a lot of things had been planned. You were in the Senate, you've dealt with this issue of security in the armed forces. Let me ask you, is that a security issue, and what do you think should be done?
Well, first of all, you're right. I was in the Senate for 12 years. 11 of those years I was on the Senate Intelligence Committee. So I have some knowledge in that. I think we're very, very fortunate that the journalist did not disclose the particular facts, that if they had been disclosed in real time, at least from what we know now, if they'd been disclosed, the story at least we know about, if they'd been disclosed in real time, that certainly could have threatened U.S. forces who were involved in that activity. So I think it's a very, very good thing that he did not do that. Look, I think the facts are going to continue to come out over the next several days, and I'm not sure that I can particularly add to the facts. We're all waiting I don't have a security clearance anymore, so I'm not getting any more facts than anybody else is. And so let's just see, what comes out. But obviously, it's a very concerning situation.
Let me ask you about tariffs. There's a lot of talk right now.
You got the wrong guy. I'm not John. No. I'm not John Houston.
But I'm
not Bernie Moreno. I'm Mike DeWine. I have enough to worry about here.
But I want to ask you about the state's response.
I don't have to have an opinion about everything that the president does or Congress does.
But does the state have a role in helping Ohio's farmers who are dealing with tariffs and are fearful that they're going to lose a lot because of tariffs? I mean, where does the state come into that?
Joe, the tariffs are set by the president and set by Congress.
Yeah.
Look, we know what the basic facts are. The basic facts are that, we are a major trader, Ohio is, with Canada and with Mexico, certainly more with Canada. But these are our two leading trade partners. And so whatever is done with tariffs, one way or the other, is going to have some impact, significant impact on the state of Ohio. Look, I think that at this point, we do not know the rest of the story. We do not know how this plays out. If the president is using the threat of tariffs or the imposition of tariffs to get a fair deal, and we end up with low tariffs, then I think that would be successful. If we end up on a trade war, that I don't think that's what anybody wants to see. So time will tell, and we'll see.
Okay. I think I see Sophia giving me a hand gesture back there to let everyone know this. Governor, thank you for your comments, first of all. But we want to know, we want to let the audience and those of you watching at home know that it is the CMC's long-standing tradition to take audience questions. We'll move to the questions from our live stream and in-person audiences in a few minutes. If you do have a question, please make your way over to the microphone now. It's in the back there. And if you're watching online, please type your questions in the chat. But before we take audience questions, Governor, I have one more question for you. Some people on social media have conjectured that you would like to be appointed as the ambassador to the Vatican once your term is over. And I want to ask you, is that something you're angling for?
Joe, I've been married 57, almost 58 years. I would like to continue to stay married. We have 28 grandchildren, most of them in Ohio, and the other ones are in North Carolina. They're not that far away, and we'd like to stay close to them. We have 8 on our road. So yes, I want to stay, first of all, I want to stay married. I want to stay close to my grandkids. So.
And you don't want to be in the Vatican then? Okay, gotcha.
I can visit, but it's not.
Okay. So let's go to the back of the room now. And CMC forums are, we have, let's see, wrong page here, guys.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Sophia Pfiffner, CEO of the Columbus Metropolitan Club, and it is our long-standing tradition to ask audience questions. So we do have a long line forming behind me, but if you have a question, you feel that we can get to it in time, feel free to join us. We also have a slew of questions online. I will remind the folks in the back that our questions have 2 things in common. One is that they are 30 seconds or less, and 2, that they end with what punctuation? Absolutely. All right, our first question is actually from my daughter, Caroline Pfiffner.
What should kids do if they want to make a difference but they don't feel heard? What's the best way that they can be a leader and speak up?
If they don't feel heard, what's the best way for them to be a leader and speak up?
Well, look, I think, as a young person, you have a real opportunity to have an impact. I get letters from children. Sometimes I see kids at fairs and they'll hand me a letter. Sometimes it's a school assignment. So young people, just because they can't yet vote, can certainly be involved. And I remember, I think we were in 3rd grade or something in Yellow Springs, and we wrote letters to the Ohio Department of Transportation about not putting a highway through Glen Helen. So that was my first political activity, I think. So I was not very old. So far, the ODOT has not put it through Glen Helen, so we're okay. But yeah, we appreciate young people, and I think most people in office appreciate young people to be involved.
Okay, next question.
Yes, Governor, you signed the bathroom bill requiring transgender students to use bathrooms of their birth gender. My question is in 2 parts. What advice would you give to a transgender male student dressed as you are today in a suit and tie as he navigates the choice of his bathroom usage? And the second part is on an institutional level. What advice do you have for schools and universities to enforce the law? Should they, for example, require transgender students to wear a yellow badge so that they can be identified at school and the schools can monitor which bathrooms they use? Your thoughts, sir.
My thoughts are that schools and other places are working this out, and I think they will work it out, and they have worked it out in the past.
Okay, next question.
Thank you. I'm Bill Wayhoff with Steptoe and Johnson, and this is really a question for the First Lady, but you're the one here, Governor.
I never speak for the First Lady, but
speaking of literacy, the First Lady has emphasized getting books to every child in the state through the Dolly Parton Foundation. Can you make a comment about how successful that has been? Thank you.
That's a good pitch. Thank you. Appreciate that. Look, Fran has done a great job, and people in every county have done a great job. We now have, I think, 412,000 kids every month get a book, free book in the mail, from children from birth until the age of 5. I think since Fran started this and expanded it throughout Ohio, we've sent out about 20 million books. So very, very happy with where we are. 70% of the households that have a child under 5, 70% of those households are getting a book or books in the mail in Ohio every single month. But we need help. And one of the places we need help, frankly, is Franklin County. Our urban counties were doing okay, but we could do a lot better. And reaching more people and getting the children signed up. So if anyone can help in regard to that, basically, the legislature provides half the money. The other half money is raised locally in the local community. And what the local community does, whatever group is doing it, and it varies by county, but they have two things that they do. One is sign kids up, and the other is to raise half the money that it costs for these books. But the signing up is just so very, very important. If you look at the different communities that we have within Franklin County or that we have within Cuyahoga County, in some of the communities we are not penetrating enough and not getting enough kids signed up. So there's always more work to do. We've made a lot of progress, but we still have a ways to go. Thank you very much.
Okay, this next question comes from online. I'm going to combine two questions that are related. One is from Bradley Simpson, who asked, the federal government, CDC specifically, just yesterday cut $11 billion for state public health efforts. What are we going to do to solve that? Additionally, Adam Porter asked, what is your administration doing to improve access to health care for marginalized populations? And please share any successes.
Well, I'll take the second one first, or maybe I'll do both of them. Look, every day we're trying to figure out, where we are in regard to all kinds of federal dollars that come back to the state. And every one of the members of our cabinet, we've told them, you stay in touch with your counterpart in Washington, D.C., and let's see what that means. So this is certainly a work in progress. As far as access to health, one thing I mentioned was Medicaid. We've been very aggressive in regard to new programs and trying specifically to reach underserved populations who are legally entitled to Medicaid, but who we may not be reaching, or we may not be reaching in a comprehensive enough way. If you look at what we've done, particularly with young people who have mental health problems but have other challenges, we've been taking approaches that's a much more holistic approach to these young people, so that they might have 4 or 5 different agencies that are helping them. We've tried to pull them together, those agencies, and come up with a better way to deliver services. Something else that we've done we have been encouraging and putting money into schools to have school-based clinics. And what we've found is that in underserved populations, in underserved areas of the state of Ohio, whether it's urban or whether it's rural, if you place a clinic in a school, that schools generally are the place of most comfort, where people feel good. They go there to see basketball games. They go there for parent-teacher conferences. And if you could have a clinic in that school, you're going to get more people. Many of these clinics serve not only children, but they've got another entrance where they can serve adults in that community. And we've really been able to expand that. And the budget that I presented will continue to expand that. Let me mention quickly something else. The state of Ohio has had a law for a long, long time that says that a eye screening has to be done early in elementary school. What we found is that of the children who have been found to need then an eye exam, or they've been screened and said, okay, now you need an eye exam, and maybe you need glasses, only 1/4 of them ever end up getting the actual eye exam. Only 1/4. So we have a very significant and I think bold plan contained in our budget to go out and start reaching these kids. And many times what will work is a mobile unit that literally goes up and pulls up to that school, and for a couple of days, eye exams are being done. And then for the kids who need glasses, they get their glasses. They come back and they fit that child with glasses. We also have in the budget a pilot program. The eye is not pilot, but the next one is, and that is dental. And we have, frankly, kids in this state who aren't able to learn very well and who aren't able to function very well because they have very significant dental problems. And we are targeting the 7 or 8 highest counties that have the biggest problems and most underserved counties in regard to dental care. So these are things that we're doing to try to reach the underserved.
Hi, thank you for being here. I'm Ryan Dieter. I'm a local realtor and small investor myself. And my question is twofold. You mentioned the property tax issue today, but you didn't really mention the housing crisis we have here in Columbus especially. Wanted to see what the budget has for home ownership, for local home ownership here in Columbus. And 2, wanted to see if there's ever been a proposal for a fee or a higher tax for out-of-state investors or ownership here to help offset some of the costs that we were talking about today. And it's also to help address the crisis as it's more competitive, as we have more out-of-state people here in Columbus looking to invest. And also, local investors tend to have a better care for the community and their renters as well. So just wanted to see if there's anything proposed for any other fees for out-of-state investors or anything like that. Thank you.
We're very open to other ideas, and happy to follow up with you or have you follow up with me. I can get you my card. I'll give you my email. Would like to hear more. We do have some provisions in this budget that help. One of the areas that we see some real problems is in rural areas as well. It's not only an urban problem, it's a rural part. For example, along the western side of the state of Ohio, northwest Ohio, got some very significant problems. We're not going to solve this problem ourselves. I mean, part of it, as you know, is an interest rate. We get interest rates down. People are going to be able to make that down payment. They're going to make that monthly payment. Banks are going to be more likely to loan money. The lending institution will, whoever it is, more likely to do that. But we do have several provisions in this budget that are focused on that. I also know the speaker is focused on this as well, and I think that they're going to come out with something out of the House focusing on it. But there's always work. There's always more work to do. Thank you.
We have a few more online questions, and again, we have a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to combine these 2 questions. One is from Liza Paul, who asked, if the federal government decides to cut the funding for the Head Starts program, will the state pick it up? Additionally, Vanessa Butler asked, as we work to protect key investments to support publicly funded childcare and the child tax credit, what do you see as the biggest opportunities to advance these policies?
Well, we have not really talked about child care up here. Joe didn't ask me a question about that. That's one of the ones I'd written down. I figured she was going to ask me. But thank you, Annie, for asking it, so now I can talk about it.
It's a good question.
Look, we have, about a year ago, we were able to significantly increase the assistance we're giving people in regard to child care. Having good quality child care does two things, obviously. One, it helps that child and makes that child more likely to be ready to go and start kindergarten. Number two, it also allows those parents to make decisions if they want to work more or if they want to go to work, they will be able to do that. So we now, as of a year ago, and we continue it in this budget, I think we added an additional over 5,000 families, over 7,000 kids who are getting subsidized child care. We've taken it up from, I think, 130% of poverty to 200% of poverty. That translates to a family of four at about $62,000. If they're under that, then they would qualify. So it's a big step. It's in the budget. We hope that the legislature will keep it in the budget. Something else that is, I think, related to that I do want to put a plug in for, and that is we provide in our budget for a tax credit of $1,000 for every child that you have who is under the age of 7. This will make a huge difference for some families. Families can use this money however they want. If both parents are working, for example, they may want to apply that money towards child care. Some people have said, well, that doesn't pay for the child care. No, it doesn't. But $1,000 is $1,000, and it will help. If one of the parents stays home, the other one goes work outside the home, then that money can be applied to groceries or it can be applied to anything. Where do we get this money? We get it by raising the tax on tobacco by $1.50. Still doesn't make Ohio the highest state. That money goes directly. It's almost a direct match. We take that money directly and we put it out and we go into these families. It is the only way we can fund it, frankly. There's just no other way in the budget unless we go out and create this money that we will be able to fund it. But I think it will make a significant difference in the lives of a lot of families in the state of Ohio. I was reading a survey yesterday, and there's a lot of factors that go into people's decision about children. But it was just interesting to me that a survey indicates that when you ask people how many children they want, it's up here, and then when you actually look at how many they have, it's down here. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. And I'm not saying this is going to, increase the population of Ohio or do anything. I just think it's the right thing to families. We want to be a state that is supportive of families and supportive of children. And the budget that I have presented is very supportive of families and very supportive of children.
Governor, we have about 90 seconds for a final question.
My name is Will Petrick. I'm with Rise Together Innovation Institute. Thank you. I know in your State of the State, you talked about in order for Ohio to reach its full potential, that all of us need to do that. And 100% agree with that. Just want to say thank you for the provisions in the budget that would make childcare more affordable for parents, but also the tax relief for parents with young children. My biggest concern is the proposal that could take healthcare coverage away from 780,000 Ohioans, including 115,000 adults in Franklin County. If the Medicaid expansion trigger language is triggered, it would be a budget cut of $13.5 billion. That would mean loss of healthcare coverage, job losses, more people going to the emergency room. Just going back to your theme of reaching the full potential and removing barriers, just want to ask, how can we, one, make sure all Ohioans have the health care that they need, but also, is your administration doing anything to remove that language to ensure people can have the health care coverage that they need?
Yeah, good question. Thank you. our goal is for, as you stated, is for everyone to live up to their full potential. You know, we had asked the federal government to put a work requirement in. You have to define work requirement, though. Work requirement means the whole goal is to take this individual. Now, if they have medical problems or they can't do it, they have other problems they can't do it, well, they're not included in that. We're talking about people who, you know, medically don't have the problems. They can actually go to work. And the question is, you know, why aren't they working? And what this does is we try to put them on a pathway. We have someone meet with them, try to come up with whatever pathway they want. That pathway may start just by going to school. It may go to a career tech school. It may go to a community college. That all qualifies. All those things and many more things qualify as quote work. We shouldn't look at it so much as a work requirement and something that's punitive. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is we want them to be part of society fully. We want them to be able to live and to be able to participate. And if we can help them do that, that's what we should be doing. And so that's what the goal is here, at least. Thank you. Thanks.
Well, Governor, I wish we had more time, but I'm getting wrap-up signal here, so we need to turn it over to Doug Buchanan for some concluding remarks. It's all you, Doug.
Thank you very much. Governor, I think I speak for everyone when we say we appreciate you coming out and taking questions from your constituents. So how about another round of applause for Governor Mike DeWine. Also want to thank today's sponsors, the United Way of Central Ohio, the Ohio Farm Bureau Federation, the Columbus Chamber of Commerce, Public Sector Consulting, Ian Alexander Photography, HNTB, and Smoot Construction. Another round of applause for them as well, please. Thank you. Please make plans to join us right here at the Ellis for next Wednesday's forum, Central Ohio Builds Big, which is featuring a panel of leaders unpacking some of our region's biggest construction and development projects. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.